Starting college with 10 boyfriends. During summer break, a scammer stole my social media accounts and photos to catfish people online. When I started my freshman year, I unknowingly inherited 10 boyfriends. What a coincidence! They were all in my class. I dragged my suitcase behind me, small and helpless, shrinking against the dorm wall. I stared at them in shock. Was I being mugged by 10 gorgeous guys in broad daylight? Where's the justice in this world? Turns out, having 10 boyfriends isn't a blessing everyone can handle. They talked over each other, one after another. After listening for what felt like hours, I finally pieced together the story. These handsome guys were all boyfriends that I had dated over the summer. They not only knew my name was Penny Sterling, but they'd also sent me plenty of money during our supposed relationships. Some had dated me for 2 months. Others were dumped after just 2 days. What a tragic bunch of hopeless romantics. Damn it, who was the heartless scammer? So unethical, stealing my account and photos to catfish people online. And finding 10 guys at once? I carefully asked the most handsome guy in the group, "You're also my boyfriend?" It wasn't that I was being superficial. It's just that this guy was ridiculously good-looking. With a slight smile playing at his lips, he stood there lazily, making the other 9 handsome guys pale in comparison. Clearly not the hopeless romantic type. Plus, he didn't look hurt or emotional at all. He hadn't said a single word this whole time. Among this group of guys who'd been scammed out of money and feelings by me, he seemed completely out of place. He glanced at me and shook his head. "No." I asked, seriously, "Then do I owe you money too?" He hesitated, then shook his head again. The other boyfriends looked at him in confusion. So did I. I frowned and asked, "Then why are you here causing trouble?" He sighed, looking troubled before speaking. "You said you were Penny Sterling, daughter of entertainment mogul Richard Sterling, and that you had everything except money was never an issue. You insisted I be your boyfriend. When I refused, you started throwing money at me, transferring funds to my bank account, making grand promises about launching my entertainment career and making me the next big star. I'm here today to return the money." I was stunned. The other wronged boyfriends started crying. This was the weirdest scammer I'd ever encountered. Even online romance scams were based on looks now. Ugly guys weren't even worth scamming. How insulting! And there was apparently a class system based on appearance. The 10 guys were ranked by attractiveness, with the least attractive being scammed for the most money. The most handsome one, Ethan Cross, not only wasn't scammed, the scammer actually paid him. Conveniently, all the money stolen from the 9 boyfriends had been transferred to Ethan. The money Ethan came to return exactly covered what the scammer had stolen. Though this whole mess was resolved without too much damage, I, a college freshman, became infamous on campus. Even though I explained that my accounts were hacked and photos stolen, that the scammer wasn't me, nobody believed it. The campus beauty Madison shared a dorm room with me. She led the other students in treating me like I had the plague. Getting too close to me was considered bad luck. As soon as I entered our dorm room, I heard her making snide comments with 2 other roommates. Juggling 9 guys while scamming them for money to chase after someone else, if I were her, I'd be too embarrassed to show my face at school. Creating a fake rich girl persona is one thing, but using scammed money to chase after her crush when she couldn't afford it herself? Just because her name is Penny Sterling doesn't mean she's actually rich. It's ridiculous. I've never heard of any entertainment company CEO named Richard Sterling. How tacky can you get? The campus beauty wrinkled her nose, pretending not to see me. Her roommate added, "Such a trashy small-town name." Would any real business mogul actually choose that name? Even people in rural areas have better names now. Standing in the doorway, I wondered what Richard Sterling would think if he heard their comments. "Speak of the devil, my dad," Richard Sterling called. As soon as I answered, his booming voice came through. 0. 6. Sweetheart, how's school? I had my secretary load 5 million onto your meal card. Let me know when you need more money. Hearing his words, I felt dizzy. Yes, my dad was indeed very successful. A genuine business mogul. Who could casually throw around 5 million with a wave of his hand? Of course, I'd be happier if it weren't loaded onto my meal card. Coincidentally, he did own an entertainment company. Though now, my older brother ran the company. My brother's name was chosen by Mom. Very CEO-like Preston Sterling. Obviously, Mom was also exasperated, pulling Dad's ear while scolding, 5 million on a meal card? Richard Sterling, have you lost your mind? Our daughter isn't a pig, when could she possibly eat that much? Mom got a bit too excited and spoke louder than intended. Even though I wasn't on speaker, the 3 girls could still hear my phone conversation. Listening to Mom's words, they couldn't help but snicker. Their looks toward me became even more disdainful. Another roommate said contemptuously, so Penny Sterling's family is just as good at pretending. All fake. Not like our Madison, she just signed with Summit Entertainment as a freshman, and her cousin is a top agent there. Even Ethan treats Madison differently from everyone else. I held my phone, looking at them with an odd expression. Sorry to disappoint, but Summit Entertainment is actually owned by my family. I'd always suspected that whoever stole my account and photos for online dating was lurking somewhere close to me. Because the scammer found 9 boyfriends plus 1 target Ethan, who were all from my class. Specifically, the 10 most handsome guys in our class. The guys in our class who weren't targeted felt insulted because I only went after good-looking ones. The girls resented me for only going after guys in our own class, specifically targeting the hottest ones. Our class had exactly 10 decent-looking guys, and I'd supposedly corrupted them all. Absolutely outrageous. As a freshman, I was completely ostracized. And because of the scammer's actions, Ethan was also excluded by all the insulted male classmates. Watching Ethan sitting alone in the corner of the classroom, I felt sorry for him. I suddenly understood why the scammer only paid him instead of scamming him. Who couldn't love a vulnerable, handsome guy? I carefully sat next to Ethan and cleared my throat softly. He looked up at me sleepily, his eyes questioning. This adorable, handsome look hit me pretty hard. I immediately sat up straight and reflexively said, "Do you want to be an entertainer?" My dad is Richard Sterling. I can make you a star. Ethan looked at me with a peculiar expression. He opened his mouth, hesitating. Madison's angry voice came from behind. Penny Sterling, what are you trying to do to Ethan now? You're still claiming that summer incident wasn't you. I turned around to see a row of eyes glaring at me angrily. Sorry, occupational hazard. Since high school, I'd set my sights on working at the family company after graduation. To support my brother and become a top talent agent, launching countless stars. Carrying the company on my shoulders. That's why I got into the Arts Academy. Seeing a promising talent like Ethan, I really couldn't help myself. Looking embarrassed, I tried to explain, listen to me, my dad, Richard Sterling, really does own an entertainment company. Madison laughed coldly, and my dad owns a mining company. Penny Sterling, have you no shame? Now that you can't scam anyone, are you trying to brainwash yourself? Do you think Ethan is stupid? He'd never believe your nonsense. Everyone else had the same expression, like I was trying to harm someone again and nobody would believe me anymore. Just as I was being condemned by everyone, Ethan blinked and suddenly spoke, I believe you. Then he asked with interest, can you really make me a star? I was stunned. Madison froze for a moment. Everyone else looked equally shocked. I immediately called my brother and asked him to sign this promising talent, Ethan. My brother agreed enthusiastically. With a grand gesture, he arranged for the company's top agent to manage Ethan. After hanging up, I noticed Ethan was surrounded by Madison and others. Walking closer, I saw Madison trying to enlighten Ethan. Ethan, don't let Penny Sterling fool you. She scammed so many of our classmates over the summer. She loves tricking good-looking, innocent guys like you. You should stay away from her from now on. Other girls nodded in agreement behind her. Madison lifted her chin proudly. My cousin Sophia is a top agent at Summit Entertainment. If you want to be a star, I can have my cousin sign you to Summit Entertainment. We can debut together. Madison's follower added, right, Madison is different from Penny Sterling, who's just an empty talking scammer. Her cousin is really capable and can definitely make you both famous. I stood behind them, listening to their conversation. Looking at Ethan, whose eyelids drooped as if he was falling asleep, unclear whether he'd heard anything they said, I pursed my lips. How dare they try to steal my talent? Suddenly, my phone chimed. Someone was adding me on social media. It was the top agent my brother had arranged. I hesitated and asked, "Are you called Sophia?" She quickly replied, "I'm Claire Chen. Sophia is my assistant." "Miss Sterling, do you know her?" I looked at the message on my phone, then at Madison, who was boasting about how amazing her cousin was. I fell into contemplation. The next day at noon, I invited Ethan to the cafeteria for lunch. I also planned to have him meet and sign with my brother's company's top agent. I'd arranged to meet Claire at the cafeteria. But we'd barely sat down when Madison, having gotten word, arrived with her followers in tow. 6. Madison glared at me like I might take advantage of Ethan at any moment. Her followers' eyes fell on our lavish lunch spread. One follower said bitterly, "So extravagant. This meal probably costs more than what I spend in a month." I sighed. I didn't want this either. My dad had just loaded too much money onto my meal card. Madison heard this and turned red with anger. "Penny Sterling, have you no shame? Making Ethan pay for such expensive food." She then pointed at me and earnestly advised Ethan, "See? I told you she's a scammer. She wants to steal your money and then seduce you." Ethan slowly swallowed his food and said lazily, "She's paying for this meal." Madison choked on her words. Then she said angrily, "She's definitely putting on a show to impress you, probably scammed someone else for money again." Then she turned and seemed to see something. Her eyes suddenly brightened. "Sophia, you really came." I looked up in the direction of her gaze. Oh, it was my brother's company's top agent, Claire, arriving with her assistant. Seeing her cousin made Madison even more arrogant. She raised her chin at me and sneered, "My cousin Sophia is here to sign him with Summit Entertainment." "You said you'd make him a star. Which company are you signing him with?" "Where's your agent?" She then looked at Ethan. "See? I told you I wouldn't lie to you. My cousin can definitely make you famous." Madison's followers looked at her with admiration and envy. I said with an odd expression, "Well, it's also Summit Entertainment, and she's here now too." One follower immediately scoffed, "Are you trying to piggyback off them? The person coming over is clearly Madison's cousin. Don't tell me you're claiming the agent you found is also Madison's cousin?" I glanced at the two people walking toward us and sighed. Well, not exactly. Madison was convinced I was just bluffing. She lifted her chin and "umphed," looking at me with disdain. Then she had her followers wait outside the cafeteria. She got up and walked over to her cousin. She seemed to know Claire too, and said ingratiatingly, "Claire, Sophia, you're here. By the way, my classmate also wants to sign with our company. He's very handsome. I'll introduce him to you later." I also sneakily watched their interaction. So she was afraid her followers would discover that the top agent wasn't her cousin, but Claire, which is why she sent them away. Madison saw me watching and gave me a smug look. Claire nodded coolly without saying anything. but Sophia glared at Madison and lowered her voice. "Don't cause trouble. I'm here with Claire today to meet the young miss and her classmate. We can discuss your matter after we finish our business." Hearing Sophia's words, Madison's eyes lit up. "So the young miss is also at our school?" "I'm so honored." "Claire, can I come with you?" "Don't worry. I definitely won't cause any trouble. 06. I just want to meet the young miss, so I can help her out around school later." Claire agreed. Madison obediently followed behind Claire. I looked at Madison with mixed feelings. Madison turned and saw me watching her again. Not knowing what she was thinking, she gave me another smug, disdainful look. My expression grew even more peculiar. The next moment, Claire finally spotted me. Unlike her previous coldness, her face immediately broke into a smile. She strode toward me with purpose. Madison followed behind Claire, still wearing her smug expression, completely confused about what was happening. Soon, Claire reached me. I looked at Claire, then at Madison behind her. My expression became even more strange. Claire was completely oblivious and greeted me with a smile. "Miss Sterling, there you are." Madison's eyes widened suddenly. She looked thunderstruck. "Miss? Miss Sterling?" she stammered. I nodded. "That's me. Sorry to disappoint you." Madison nearly burst into tears. "Ethan signed with my brother's company, but made one condition: he wanted me as his agent." I hesitated a bit since I was still a freshman. But Claire, who'd heard about my situation from my brother, smiled and said, "Miss Sterling, weren't you planning to work as an agent at the company after graduation anyway? This is perfect practice, starting with your classmate." So the matter was settled. I became Ethan's agent. When Claire was about to leave, I realized Madison had disappeared at some point. For many days after, Madison avoided me like I was the plague. As Ethan's first agent, my biggest goals were studying and making him famous. In 10 days, there would be the freshman welcome party. I planned to sign Ethan up. Let Ethan make a stunning debut at the party. Fire the first shot of his career. I racked my brains trying to find Ethan an amazing act that would dazzle everyone. Unfortunately, Ethan couldn't sing or dance, so we finally settled on a dramatic performance. Soon, we faced our second challenge. Ethan and I were so unpopular in our major that we couldn't find a third person to join our drama. And because Ethan and I spent all our time together, it caused even more resentment. Madison didn't say anything, but her followers disliked me even more. Marcus Webb was one of my 9 ex-boyfriends. According to the scammer's ranking of most handsome boyfriends by Money Stolen, Marcus ranked second, with looks only inferior to Ethan's. He'd only been scammed out of $200. On the second day of Ethan and me hanging out together constantly, Marcus approached me. He stood before me, looking down condescendingly, and said like he was doing me a favor, "Penny Sterling, let's get back together." I was sitting in the cafeteria eating and froze. Ethan slowly put down his chopsticks and looked up at him. Marcus made eye contact with Ethan, then looked disdainful, pointing at him contemptuously. "Ethan is just a pretty boy, with only his face going for him. He even makes you pay for meals. What do you see in him?" "Penny Sterling, as long as you break up with this pretty boy and get with me, I can let bygones be bygones about everything that happened before. I have more money than him. You won't need to scam other people anymore. As long as you're with me, I'll spend any amount of money on you." His words were full of domineering CEO energy. Like something from an old romance novel. If Madison was the leader among the girls ostracizing me, then Marcus was the ringleader among the guys, excluding Ethan. He was more popular in our major than Ethan. Though not as handsome as Ethan, he had money. Usually flashy with his wealth, he had many female admirers and male followers in our major. I couldn't help glancing at Ethan. He lowered his eyes, looking like a bullied little victim. I was furious. This was the first time someone had flaunted their wealth in front of me. Not only that, he was leading the campus bullying of my first client. I laughed coldly, channeling my brother's attitude. I slammed my meal card on the table forcefully. I never want to hear you badmouth Ethan again. Here's $4,900,000, take it and get lost. It wasn't that I didn't want to throw a check at him. I'd only brought my meal card to eat, not even my bank card, let alone a checkbook, so this had to do. The cafeteria went silent for several moments. After a long pause, someone whispered, "Has Penny Sterling lost her mind?" 06. Because I rejected Marcus, his followers all badmouthed me behind my back, calling me ungrateful and mentally deficient. Moreover, Ethan and I got another character upgrade. Ethan became a pretty boy with only his face but no money or abilities, who was being kept by someone. And I became a fool who scammed people online because catfishing wasn't enough, then stole my parents' money to keep Ethan. We were both poor, yet we'd created this kept man and sugar mama dynamic. Everyone in our major was secretly discussing which of us was more mentally challenged. The final conclusion, we were both poor idiots with screws loose. Marcus, having failed in his pursuit, became angry and embarrassed. He directly announced that whoever dared participate in our drama would be going against him. So, as the school celebration approached, the ostracized pair of us still couldn't find enough people for our drama. Madison voluntarily joined Ethan and my drama. Perfect timing, since our drama group needed people. I agreed readily. When the program list was submitted, Madison's followers and Marcus's crew were all shocked. Marcus's follower and Madison's followers huddled together to analyze the situation thoroughly. Finally, one of Madison's followers clapped her hands, confidently excited. Madison must be infiltrating the enemy camp to expose Penny Sterling as a fraud. To pull Ethan out of the fire pit, Marcus's follower was a conspiracy theorist who sneered, "Ethan's no good either." 06. I think Madison might be trying to get revenge for Marcus by sabotaging their school celebration performance and making them lose face completely. Finally, they looked at each other and said in unison, admiringly, "Brilliant. Madison is absolutely brilliant." Ethan and I heard this and turned to look at Madison suspiciously. Madison quickly said, "You have to trust me. I really don't have any bad intentions." She then glared angrily at the dozen or so people in front of us. She stood up furiously and yelled, "Are you all sick? Stop talking nonsense. I genuinely want to join them." The dozen people in front heard Madison say this and all gave her knowing looks, like we understand. Madison was about to cry. Not long after this incident, Marcus sought me out privately. He said, "Do you regret it now?" I looked at him like he was crazy. "Then don't blame me." Marcus sneered, turned, and walked away. Even his retreating figure carried an air of cold ruthlessness. After speaking, he walked over to Madison and lowered his voice. "Since she's so stubborn, I won't protect her anymore. You can do whatever you want. You don't need to consider me." Madison looked at him like he was an idiot. "Are you insane?" Marcus didn't get angry and gave her an "I understand you" expression, then turned and walked away coolly again. Madison looked like she was about to cry as she turned to me. "Miss Sterling, let me explain. I really don't want to do anything." I nodded, then whispered to Ethan, "He's so dramatic." Ethan nodded too. His brain doesn't seem to work very well. Marcus, who was walking away, stumbled and finally couldn't maintain his composure. He turned around and glared at us angrily. "I'd like to see how long the money you scammed and stole can keep supporting this pretty boy." "And you?" He pointed at Ethan and sneered, "A shameless pretty boy with no money or dignity will be abandoned eventually." I softly comforted Ethan, "Don't listen to his nonsense. You're going to be a future star. We won't stoop to his level." Ethan looked at my serious expression, chuckled softly, and nodded, "Okay." I couldn't help clutching my chest. Mom, he's so handsome. I'm definitely going to make him a star. To ensure Ethan's explosive debut at the welcome party, I not only got professional photography, marketing, and makeup teams from my brother, but also found Ethan a particularly compelling role. I was determined to make him an overnight sensation. Since it was a romantic drama script, the female lead was also important. Considering that Madison was also signed with my brother's company and had been performing well lately, I decided to let her play the female lead and share some of the spotlight. As for me, I'd just be a background character with narration. Who knew that after I announced this decision, Ethan immediately stopped smiling? His handsome brow furrowed, and he rarely showed a hurt expression. Am I not your favorite artist anymore? 0. 6. You know she's always trying to take advantage of me. How could that be? You're my precious baby, I immediately said. Seeing Ethan's red ears and uncomfortable downward gaze, my heart suddenly filled with heroic spirit. Ethan was my first client. I had an obligation to protect his purity. I suddenly remembered there was a misplaced kissing scene in the drama. I immediately looked at Madison with suspicion. Madison quickly backed away 2 steps, looking at me like I was some kind of dangerous beast, staying far from Ethan. No. How would I dare to touch Miss Sterling's man? You should play the female lead. Considering Madison did have a track record and Ethan seemed to have developed psychological trauma about her, being very afraid of her taking advantage of him, I had to replace her as the female lead and take the role myself. Though Ethan wasn't suited for singing and dancing, he was perfect material for acting. I never expected that choosing such a seductive and compelling male role for Ethan would end up affecting me first during rehearsals. When Ethan lowered his gaze and leaned toward me during practice, looking at me with those deep emotional eyes and distinct eyelashes, my heart pounded wildly. Then, I fled in panic. I was guilty. I actually lusted after his body. I was corrupt as his agent. I was a beast. After that day, I ate vegetarian food for several days. This pure and ascetic lifestyle made even Ethan look like a little cabbage to me. I wasn't as tempted anymore. The performance at the welcome party was very successful. The photography team took professional photos and high-definition videos that were posted online. With a top-tier marketing team involved, our drama shot straight to the trending topics. Ethan and I both became famous. Online, there were overwhelming requests for Ethan's and my contact information. But soon, our scandals were exposed. I was a fake rich girl who scammed people through online dating. Ethan was a kept pretty boy. Instantly, the internet was full of criticism. Students in our major were all ashamed to be associated with us. Whenever they saw Ethan and me, they'd point and whisper. Marcus approached me again, advising me not to remain stubborn. Being with Ethan would lead to no good, and my reputation was already ruined. I should quit while I was ahead and stop scamming people. Being poor wasn't my fault. As long as I honestly got together with him, he'd give me money to spend. I looked at him blankly and said, I'm not poor. Marcus frowned, looking at me with disappointment. From his expression, I could read, I never expected you to remain so stubborn even now. His follower advised him from behind, Marcus, she's just incorrigible. When she really runs out of money and Ethan dumps her, she'll know what's suffering island. Madison also tried to explain. Actually, she really is quite wealthy. I nodded vigorously. Just then, Madison's follower behind us said in shock, Summit Entertainment just made an announcement they've signed Ethan and Madison as artists. Madison is amazing for getting Summit Entertainment to sign Ethan. No wonder Madison wanted to be in this drama, it must have been the company's idea. This really benefited Penny Sterling, letting her ride Ethan's coattails for some fame. But so what if she participated? The entertainment company won't sign her anyway. She deserves it. That's what she gets for offending our Madison. Marcus looked very unhappy, glaring at Madison with a dark expression. "You're the one who got Ethan into Summit Entertainment?" I also followed Marcus's gaze to look at Madison. Madison nearly jumped up, frantically waving her hands. "No, it wasn't me." Madison didn't finish her sentence. Marcus didn't care anyway, but looked at me again. He sneered and said persistently, "Ethan's going to be an artist now. A pretty boy like him would never stay with an ordinary poor person like you forever. My patience is limited. If you agree to break up with him and get with me now, I'll still give you money to spend in the future." The next moment, Madison's followers said in a trembling voice. Summit Entertainment made another statement. Look at it quickly. "Penny Sterling. She seems to actually be quite wealthy." Almost simultaneously, everyone looked down at their phones. I curiously opened my phone and found Summit Entertainment had posted, "Penny Sterling is the young miss of Sterling Group. There is no kept relationship between her and our artist, Ethan Cross. The young miss currently serves as Ethan's agent." Then they tagged people who had spread rumors about me being a scammer and sent them legal notices. Someone tremblingly asked below, "So what about Richard Sterling?" Summit Entertainment replied, "Mr. Richard Sterling is the company's previous president and the current president's father." After reading this, I looked up to find everyone staring at me with strange, peculiar expressions, shocked, stunned, as if their worldviews had been massively impacted. Especially those who had been targeting me before they looked like they were about to cry. Marcus also had a look of existential crisis on his face. The next moment, Madison said flatly and eerily, "Why wouldn't you listen to my explanations? Penny Sterling really is very wealthy." After a long while, Marcus asked me, "If you have money, why did you still scam other people's money?" I told the truth. My accounts really were hacked and my photos stolen. After a pause, I added, "So the person who dated you really wasn't me. Stop bothering me from now on." Marcus looked somewhat disappointed. I felt a bit sorry for him. But the next second, he suddenly looked up at me and said, "I still think Ethan isn't right for you. Consider me." Ethan frowned. I skillfully pulled out my meal card, ready to throw money at him. "There's 4,900,000 here. Take it and get lost." Marcus left with a dark expression. The rumors about me being a scammer were debunked. Madison also clarified the lies she'd told before. Her cousin Sophia wasn't a top agent at my brother's company, but an assistant to a top agent. Madison's former followers were very dissatisfied with her bragging behavior and gradually distanced themselves from her. But Madison seemed completely indifferent to these superficial things after experiencing such dramatic ups and downs. Instead, she followed me around every day like a little tail, insisting that I become her agent. I thought managing one was the same as managing two anyway. Moreover, Madison was in the same major as me, with good professional skills and intuition. So, in sophomore year, I signed her with a grand gesture. Because Madison had a precedent, I was initially very worried that Ethan would be taken advantage of by her. Although I wanted a second child, my firstborn was still my beloved baby. But after watching Madison for a while, I discovered that this girl, who used to be infatuated with Ethan, now found him extremely annoying. Ethan also abandoned his previous gentleness and often scowled at Madison. As long as I wasn't around, the two of them would start fighting. During sophomore summer break, under my elite guidance, Ethan had already gained some fame in the entertainment industry. I even got him a drama role. Madison, on the other hand, remained lukewarm. I was very concerned about Madison's future development. Later, Ethan handed me a girl group audition application. My eyes lit up, and I simply stuffed Madison into it. At first, Madison was quite happy. But when she heard it was Ethan's idea, she immediately became unhappy. She pouted and said, "Miss Sterling, Ethan just wants to package me off to the audition show so he can have you all to himself. I'm telling you, He has ulterior motives toward you. Don't fall for his tricks. He's such a scheming T-bitch. Guys like him with no money love rich young ladies like you. He definitely wants to sell his body and have you support him forever." After speaking, she glared at Ethan viciously. Ethan immediately darkened his expression. I quickly said, "You're overthinking it. Ethan is doing this for your own good." Madison looked Ethan up and down, her expression full of disgust. "Ethan, give up this fantasy. A common pretty face like you could never be worthy of Miss Sterling." Ethan was more mature than her and didn't argue back, but thoughtfully reminded me, "Penny, the audition starts tomorrow." I slapped my forehead. "Oh, right, Madison, you should head over tonight then." Madison looked very resentful. After Madison left, it wasn't long before Ethan joined his film crew. My heart was filled with heroic ambition. I'd taken another big step toward becoming a top agent. The day after I sent Ethan off, I planned to go to the company to scout for a new artist to manage. But before I could go, Ethan's assistant called me. She said there was a 50-something female investor on set who had her eye on Ethan. Not only did she knock on his hotel room door at night, but she also touched his face during dinner, clearly trying to sexually harass him. When I heard this, I was outraged. I immediately rushed to the film set to keep watch. But I came up empty. When I arrived, that handsy female investor had already left. However, I remembered her name. Some CEO of a financial company, Miss Wang. Time for the Wang family empire to fall. I conveyed my idea to my brother about bankrupting the Wang family. My brother scolded me thoroughly. "Penny Sterling, you crazy child, have you lost your mind? The Wang family is much richer than our family. I think you want your brother to go bankrupt." After hanging up, I cried while holding Ethan's hand. "Baby, I'm so sorry." Ethan looked worried. "What's wrong? Did your brother scold you?" "I'm useless. I can't bankrupt the Wang financial family to get justice for you. You were sexually harassed by that old woman and suffered for nothing." Ethan nearly choked. After a while, he said with an odd expression, "It's fine. I can handle a little suffering." Ethan being so understanding and obedient made me feel even more guilty. I immediately patted my chest and declared, "For the rest of the filming, I'll stay by your side every second. I absolutely won't let anyone take advantage of you again. 06. Ethan looked stunned for a moment. "There's such a good thing?" I thought I'd misheard. "What did you say?" Ethan smiled gently and said, "That's so thoughtful of you. I'm lucky to have you here. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what to do." I nodded with heroic determination. I must have misheard earlier. That evening, Ethan knocked on my hotel room door. He asked if I could help him rehearse lines and get familiar with the script. I nodded and agreed. But I never expected that the scene Ethan wanted to rehearse would be another romantic scene. He gently wrapped his arm around my waist, looking down into my eyes. His amber eyes seemed to shimmer with emotion, as if filled with feeling. His voice seemed enchanted as he slowly recited his lines. I blinked, and my face instantly turned red, as if it was on fire. Then I fled in panic again. The incident of Ethan visiting my room was photographed. Gossip blogs were everywhere, saying we were having an affair. I immediately clarified, but most people still didn't believe it. Some fans even threatened Ethan, demanding he immediately cut ties with me, or they'd stop supporting him. But Ethan directly blocked them. The fan-friendly persona I'd worked so hard to build for Ethan completely collapsed. Madison, who was still at the girl group competition, also sent me messages bad-mouthing Ethan. Wasn't the show supposed to confiscate phones? Where did Madison get a phone to contact me? 06. I told her to stop talking nonsense and reminded her not to play with her phone all the time, but focus on the competition. Before summer break ended, Ethan wrapped filming. Madison also made it through the finale and debuted in second place with excellent results. Now, Madison's popularity was on par with Ethan's. She felt empowered again. In front of Ethan, she stood much straighter. She kept whispering bad things about Ethan in my ear. I told her to stop provoking Ethan. But she said, "Miss Sterling, I'm telling the truth. No man in the entertainment industry is any good. Don't let this scheming poor guy fool you." The weekend after junior year started was my mom's birthday. Mom specifically asked me to bring Ethan to the birthday party. As the wife of the former owner of the biggest entertainment company, my mom's annual birthday party had been a major entertainment industry event since her retirement. Even if she hadn't mentioned it, I planned to bring Ethan for some exposure and networking. Of course, I couldn't play favorites. I planned to bring Madison along too. I got a makeup team for both Madison and Ethan, selected their outfits, and we headed to my family's mansion. As soon as they got out of the car, these two started competing. Madison stood on my left, insisting on linking arms with me. Ethan stood on my right, raising his arm for me to take. I hesitated, then threw caution to the wind and took his arm. So the three of us entered my house in this weird formation. At the party, there were indeed many people. I even saw Marcus, who'd come with his father. After seeing our formation, he looked a bit displeased and shot Ethan a disdainful look. Then he said to me, "Penny, I won't give up." I ignored him and kept walking. Halfway through, I ran into my brother, who looked at me strangely, like I'd lost my mind. I quickly let go of Madison and Ethan. This sandwich situation was driving me crazy. But before I could feel relieved, I saw a cool, confident woman arm in arm with my mother, looking very close. I recognized her. This was Victoria Wang, the old woman who'd sexually harassed Ethan on set, trying to take advantage of him. I was about to go on high alert when Victoria saw me. She smiled warmly and walked over to take my hand, saying affectionately, "This must be Penny. You're just as spirited and beautiful as in your photos. You look too thin, though. Are you working too hard?" As she spoke, she touched my face. I immediately froze. I looked around desperately for help, nearly crying. This lady was an equal opportunity harasser. She was even taking advantage of me. I first looked at my mom. She was completely oblivious to her daughter being harassed and enthusiastically introduced us. "Penny, this is Miss Wang from Wang Group. Say hi to Aunt Victoria." I looked at Madison next. She was looking everywhere except at me. She clearly recognized Victoria's identity. This heartless creature. She claimed to be my little cotton-padded jacket and cared about me most, but now she was abandoning me. Finally, I looked desperately at Ethan. Ethan sighed and walked toward me. I nearly cried with relief. My baby was the most thoughtful. The next moment, Ethan rescued me from the she-devil's grasp. Then he looked helplessly at the she-devil. "Mom, you're scaring her." I was moved for all of half a second before my eyes widened. What did he just call her? Mom. Not only me, but Madison also looked thunderstruck. She looked like she was having an existential crisis, muttering, "The joke was on me all along." Marcus, who was walking toward us, also stared at Ethan in shock. I thought Ethan was poor. Turns out his mom was a financial industry mogul and his dad was a real estate tycoon. They could bankrupt my family with a flick of their fingers. At Mom's birthday party, with all the media present, Ethan's identity was completely exposed. The pretty boy label that had followed Ethan for years instantly transformed into young master who'd rather act than inherit the family business. A few days later, when Ethan's TV drama aired, it became a huge hit. Overnight, he gained countless fans. Though not quite a top star yet, he was definitely a rising heartthrob. Later, Mom pulled me aside and said happily, "Penny, I never expected you to actually get together with Ethan." Of all the boys back then, he was my top pick. Well done, my daughter really has good taste. Listening to her, I felt something was off. I looked up sharply. What do you mean, of all the boys? Mom's face stiffened, and she quickly waved her hands. Nothing. Under my interrogation, I finally pried the truth from Mom. Turns out the scammer who'd stolen my account for online dating over the summer was actually my mom. She saw how hard I'd worked in high school without dating anyone, so she decided to set up a wonderful college life for me. And she hadn't lied, she really was looking for boyfriends for me under my name. As for the money, that didn't exist. In Mom's words, she'd read online that if a guy wouldn't spend money on his girlfriend, he definitely didn't love her enough. She was just helping me test whether future boyfriends cared about me. I looked at her meaningfully and asked, "What about Ethan?" Mom coughed, looking a bit uncomfortable. Mom couldn't help herself. I thought this young man was so handsome, and since our family has money, it was fine to spend on him. Just like my mom. Ever since discovering Ethan's wealthy background, Madison, the fence sitter, changed her tune again. Every day she whispered in my ear about how wonderful Ethan was, saying we were perfectly matched in looks and family background, a match made in heaven. I found her annoying, so I got her several commercial deals and bundled her off to the girl group. And Marcus, who'd been pursuing me relentlessly for 2 years, disappeared from my sight like a wilted plant during this period. On the 5th day of avoiding Ethan, he caught me. I was talking about dreams with a handsome freshman from the dance department. Well, his dreams. Boy bands were pretty popular lately, and I thought this underclassman had potential, so I planned to sign him. I was halfway through talking with the underclassman when Ethan showed up. His expression was dark. The underclassman was scared off by him. He grabbed my hand and dragged me outside, pulling me straight to the grove next to campus. I felt very wronged. He'd deceived me, and now he was giving me attitude. Just as I was about to resist, Ethan suddenly stopped and looked down at me seriously. "Penny Sterling, I want to date someone." I immediately shivered, forgetting to be angry, and quickly said, "No way. You're in your rising period right now. If you want to be a top star, you need career focus. It's better to maintain a single image." Ethan frowned, his tone becoming even more displeased. "He just gave up. Then I won't do it anymore. I can afford the contract penalty." I immediately looked distressed. Was he really going to stop trying and just inherit the family fortune? Was my first rising star going to die young like this? I hadn't even graduated yet, and I was already facing career failure. Ethan saw my dejected look and suddenly spoke again. "If you want me to keep working for you, I have one condition." My eyes lit up as I looked at him. He cleared his throat, his ears turning red, and said to me, "Come closer." I thought he was going to tell me something, so I looked up and moved closer. Instead, he lowered his head slightly and kissed me. I don't know how much time passed, but my head felt like mush. I heard him whisper in my ear, "Be my girlfriend, and I'll work for you forever. Also, only be my agent, no one else's." My head was dizzy as I nodded blankly. "Okay." His voice was a bit husky, making my face burn and heart race. I suspected Ethan really knew how to cast spells. Epilogue. 10 years into being an agent, Ethan and I were married. Over the years, I'd only managed 2 artists. One was the free-range Madison. The other was Ethan. Ethan had long since become a top star. This year, he won Best Actor. He was currently on stage giving his acceptance speech. I sat in the guest section watching him, more excited than if I'd won the award myself. The host asked him why he'd entered the entertainment industry originally. Ethan smiled, "Because my wife wanted to be a top agent, but I didn't like her managing other guys, so I had to sacrifice myself." The host asked what he wanted to say. Ethan hesitated, then said seriously, "I hope my wife won't be so career-focused." At my age, I should retire and enjoy a quiet life with my wife and kids. Host. I glared at him angrily from the audience, signaling him to watch his words. Instead, he winked and smiled at me. Fans were used to his daily retirement threats. They all ran to my social media to comment, "Sister-in-law, you absolutely cannot let Ethan retire, make him work for you forever." I replied through gritted teeth, "Fine." The end.